Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about the spending of Vice President Kamala Harris on her presidential election campaign, because as we described previously, she wasted over $1 billion, ended up $20 million in debt. However, the new details actually show us that things were significantly worse than previously reported, and essentially Kamala Harris was bribing media outlets for positive coverage as a Democrat. Again, one of the most insane things that you could possibly imagine was going down in this campaign, and it was totally unnecessary. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
So first things first, in a previous video where I talked about campaign spending by Vice President Kamala Harris, I mistakenly quoted a tweet that said that she put up like $500 million in terms of staff. It turns out that that number had an extra zero on it. She paid $50 million in terms of her door knocking staff, which is an extraordinary amount of money and shows you how wasteful she is. However, I greatly overestimated that, and I took that tweet, which I did say was according to this tweet, as a great overestimate. But now that the numbers have come in, that has proven to be completely untrue. However, as previously reported on this channel and by the media, the $1 million that she spent on the Oprah Winfrey interview is not only real, but it's actually $2.5 million. Now, of course, Oprah Winfrey says, look, we didn't get a dime of that. We weren't paid to do the interview or anything of the sort. She just paid for the production costs because Oprah Winfrey doesn't do her own talk show every day like she used to. So that's perfectly normal, not a red flag at all. But this is a great example, and it's indicative of the fact that Kamala Harris totally wasted the money that was donated to her, because that interview was horrible.
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American. And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being, because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are.
I mean, we did an entire video on her terrible answers during that particular interview, on the bunch of celebrities that they ended up cramming in, which just made her look more like an elitist and look less authentic. And the fact that she paid so much money for that is just completely absurd. And again, this is all while she's refusing great free media opportunities, like appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience. But what we found out after that is even more scandalous, because you could say, you know what, Oprah's a billionaire. She's not going to do this for $2.5 million. That was legitimately for the production, which, by the way, they built the set for that. But apparently, she also bribed Reverend Al Sharpton ahead of their interview with 2 donations of $250,000 to the National Action Network, which is Al Sharpton's foundation, prior to their interview. And by the way, despite the fact that MSNBC claims to be a news network, that was never disclosed on MSNBC.
Do you think some of the resistance of some men, black and white, is misogynist? And are you proud to see that most Americans, even being polled, have no problem supporting a woman at all? And I'm one that lived from Shirley to Kamala in terms of these campaigns.
Now, for me, this is insane on a number of levels. First and foremost, if Kamala Harris would have went on any MSNBC show, they would have kissed her rear end just like Al Sharpton did throughout the course of the interview. In addition to that, who the hell is watching Al Sharpton's show on MSNBC? Let's be honest about that. But again, even more crazy is that Al Sharpton himself probably would have taken the interview with Kamala Harris and sucked up to her, because not only was she the Democrat, but she was the black woman Democrat that Al Sharpton would have definitely been supporting. But apparently, Al Sharpton's grift knows no bounds, and he'll rob the Democratic Party donors, and Kamala Harris donated this money from the campaign to him. And to me, the fact that this wasn't disclosed just exposes so much about MSNBC. And again, I will add, she could have went on with Rachel Maddow, with Joy Reid, anyone and everyone on MSNBC in order to do this interview without paying for it. But for whatever reason, she was able to do this. And by the way, we don't hear any consequences for MSNBC. Now, we also talked about the Call Her Daddy podcast, how she ended up building a set for $100,000 in DC in order to have that woman come into DC to film that, pretend they were in Los Angeles, which just goes to the inauthenticity, which again is another example of paid media. By the way, her YouTube video does not have the sponsored by designation, despite the fact that she received something of value to do that interview. And as discussed in my previous video, even getting something for free and promoting it on your channel is something that you have to disclose to your audience according to YouTube's terms. But she also ended up paying, apparently, Roland Martin $350,000 before appearing on his broadcast.
This Roland Martin, who holds his own streaming program and runs a media company called New Vision Media, received $350,000 in September for a, quote, media buy that he said was for advertising. And then it quotes me. It said it should have been a hell of a lot more. More should have been spent on black-owned media. Okay, says Mr. Martin interviewed Ms. Harris in October. Then it mentions National Action Network. Then it mentions, of course, National Urban League. Now, first and foremost, I don't understand why they put media buy in parentheses, because that's what the $350,000 was for. It was for advertising. Then, of course, you have these people out here. I love the people who run their mouths on social media out here, like, you got Tariq Nasheed tweeting, like, SMH, and then you got Jamal Green talking about, see, he was paid to attack us because we disagree our positions. No, that means none of you, including you, Jamal, or Tariq, or any of y'all, even understand that media advertising is actually real. And so then I had one dude say, y'all didn't run any ads? Really? We ran this one.
Bob and I both voted for Donald Trump.
I voted for him twice. I won't vote for him again. January 6th was a wake-up call for me.
Donald Trump divides people. We've already seen what he has to bring.
He didn't do anything to help us.
We ran this one.
Kamala Harris has never backed down from a challenge. She put cartel members and drug traffickers behind bars, and she will secure our border.
And we don't get advertising from anybody. So this notion that, he came at me, because that's silly. It's silly.
Now look, this is listed technically as a media buy for Roland Martin's network of $350,000. So allegedly Kamala Harris was advertising on this particular program. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a good investment at all. First of all, everybody in Roland Martin's audience that is going to vote for the Democrat already. So you're not preaching to anybody who is new or recruiting any new voters or anything of the sort. Also, Roland Martin was backing Kamala Harris to the nth degree. So did you really need to pay him an additional sum of money in order to do that, in order to run your ads, which, by the way, were terrible ads during the course of his programming? And again, I will also add, was $350,000 really the amount that you should have spent on Roland Martin? I mean, really, guys, just think about how much money is being incinerated for a guy who, while he does have a YouTube presence, doesn't have a significantly large YouTube presence. Now, he might be big on radio or somewhere else that is unbeknownst to me, but in terms of the scale of the ad buy for the limited period of time that those ads were running to the program that it was running on, none of this made any sense. And of course, Roland Martin gave a crazy softball interview to Kamala Harris, which again, you would think she would have been able to get from him for free. Again, Roland Martin is the same idiot that defended Tiffany A. Henyard and let her her lie all over his show and then got called out for it and then pretended he was doing like 8-dimensional chess, a new level of journalism, and nobody could understand that. And of course, Roland Martin says, look, she should have spent more money on black media, support black media, and all that. And I just want to point out for everybody who donated to the Kamala Harris campaign that he doesn't give a damn about how your money is spent either, as long as it goes to his pocket.
But see, what's still amazing to me is how some of these black folks got all the smoke about $350,000 in advertising, but they ain't saying nothing about the billion, the 11 billion. Now, I'm curious now. So if we got $350,000 for advertising from the Harris for President campaign, where did the other 10 billion go? The other 10.6 billion or whatever. I'm sorry, where did that go? Where did it go? Oh, I'm sorry. I know where that money went to. ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, local TV stations, and local media in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Arizona, in Nevada. The reason I know, I went to follow those battleground, North Carolina. I went to follow those battleground states. I'm sitting in a hotel room and I'm going to television. Ad. All of those ads actually ran. Let me take y'all, do even better right here. Because remember I said those local ads. Did I say that?
Hey guys, editing Sean here. Now, I'm playing this clip so you can hear out Roland Martin's counter-argument, and then I can explain to you in great detail why this is completely invalid. Because the difference is, Roland Martin, much like Al Sharpton, financially benefited directly from the Harris campaign and refused to disclose that while they were acting as a media person, as a journalist, conducting an interview with Kamala Harris. Now, technically, Al Sharpton's conflict is a little bit lesser because she donated to his nonprofit, the National Action Network, which, by the way, pays him a salary of between $600,000 and $700,000. But Roland Martin received money. He says, we don't typically run ads on this program, from the Kamala Harris campaign to the company that is a for-profit company that he owns, and he's trying to compare it to ABC getting clearly designated advertisements in advertisement slots, and then having people who do not own ABC or NBC or CNN or any of these companies conduct the interview. Again, if Roland Martin would have said, you know what, I received money from the Harris campaign, therefore, as a journalist, somebody with integrity, I'm not going to conduct the interview of her, then we would have no problem. But he didn't do that, and he didn't disclose that, and now he's trying to say, oh, well, this is just like all these other companies, but the owner of those other companies didn't do the interview with Kamala Harris while they were financially benefiting from them. Again, this is why Sharpton and Martin are more sketchy than anybody listed thus far. And that's the crazy thing about this particular campaign. It seems like the primary goal was to enrich all the different people in the Democratic Party campaign infrastructure, which includes the media, rather than actually, win the election, because they lost the election. And despite what Joy Reid said about getting Queen Latifah's endorsement and that making it a perfect campaign.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Mm-hmm. Let's just be clear. Mm-hmm. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
Perfect campaigns usually win the election. They usually don't lose in each and every swing state. Now, overall, it appears that Kamala Harris spent about $600 million of the $1 billion+ that she had on advertisements. But one of the things that I found interesting is that she spent over $100 million of those advertisements on digital ads, soliciting more donations. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that ended up returning to the campaign. We would actually have to see those numbers to see how many people she got to donate to her campaign in response to those ads in order for us to determine whether or not that is a reasonable expense for the campaign. But again, we're talking about such huge numbers spent on paying for media, while at the same time, Kamala Harris is refusing to do free media. She's refusing to go on Rogan. She's refusing to do press conferences with people she's not deeply connected to and or paying. And the thing is, I get why some of these people wanted money from Kamala Harris in order to have her on, because if you look at the view counts of the episodes that she appeared on, they are nowhere near where Donald Trump's views were. Again, he has something like 50+ million views before Election Day for his Joe Rogan podcast. Kamala Harris was offered that same opportunity, but instead she did Shannon Sharp's podcast and all these different other various ones. And by the way, we may find out in the future that she was also paying for that media as well. Now, I also want to point out that she apparently paid $200,000 to a talk show host called Ariva Martin to tour across the swing states for her. I have no idea who this person is, if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm not even going to look this up, but I'm assuming paying this talk show host to go do swing state stuff was not a good investment in terms of her campaign. But one of my favorite things about the Harris campaign and how they wasted opportunities for earned media, for media that you don't have to pay for, is the fact that they paid so much money to these Democratic consultants, these old Obama consultants, groups that, by the way, are run by siblings or relatives or in-laws of David Axelrod, which, considering the Obamas did the coup to get Biden out of power, it seems very interesting that somebody connected to the Axelrods ended up raking in all this donation money. Is the fact that what they thought were good ideas that they were getting from the consultants were actually horrible ideas. Apparently, the Harris campaign spent $450,000 a day in order to advertise on the Sphere leading up to Election Day. Again, that big thing in Las Vegas, that's how much it costs for her to do that, and who the hell was voting based on whatever dumb person's face they saw on the Sphere. In addition to that, they were also spending money out the wazoo to build sets and do all kinds of crazy things for all the celebrities that they had, and this really came to a head when apparently before the election night, in their pre-election night party that happened the day before, they spent $10 million building 2 sets in order to have people perform concerts for her thing. And what's amazing about that is that the reason they had to build 2 sets, despite the fact that they only had 1 set by the time the show started, is because the first set was built so poorly that the Secret Service said, we could not protect this, and there's no way that we could allow you to go up on this stage in order to do your rally. Now, speaking of rallies, I want to point something out for everybody out there in the audience who may not be aware of this. Rallies for a political candidate are actually not good investments. They're big, they're expensive to put on, they involve hiring a bunch of different staff, and your reach doesn't go all that far because while you might have 40,000 people in a tremendously sized rally show up to your event, the fact is those are people who are likely already going to vote for you, so it's not moving the needle in that regard, especially when you compare it to the cost of actually doing the rally. That being said, the evil orange man ends up making news with his rally, so the effect that becomes positive or negative post that is from all the free media attention that he gets from those rallies. But Kamala Harris's rallies, they were not entertaining. They were in fact the same speech delivered in the same exact cadence, although with a change of accent here or there depending on the location, multiple times a day. So they were just blowing through money for all of those rallies, for all of that manufactured excitement, just so she could say she had bigger crowd sizes than Trump, even though many a time that was attributed to the rally being advertised as a free concert with this celebrity or that celebrity, and in many cases, like the notorious Houston rally, that concert never came to fruition. Beyonce was promised to the crowd, but she only gave a 3-minute speech. Now, I also want to add for everybody out there in the audience that there is misreporting on some of the celebrity payments, and whether or not those figures are true, it just has not been proven out. And one of the most notorious misreports is that Beyonce received $10 million for a 3-minute speech. It is really important for you guys to understand that this is just clickbait. This is just stuff that people are saying. It has not been verified. People have been going through the campaign spending over and over again, and there's nothing to indicate any of the specific dollar amounts that any of the celebrities received, because again, it has to be disclosed according to FEC guidelines, and we just don't see that in the paperwork. The reason we know about Oprah Winfrey's production company getting paid $2.5 million is because that is in the paperwork. That is in the disclosure. The reason we know that she spent $350,000 advertising on Roland Martin's show, because again, it's in the FCC filings, just like the Al Sharpton donations are in the FEC filings. But the thing is that I want you to take away from this particular campaign is that for a lot of people on the left, it wasn't a failure. Even though Kamala Harris didn't get elected, they all got paid. They got big money in order to back their girl for the week, because again, they've already forgotten about Kamala Harris. I might be surprised if many of you click on this video because maybe you've forgotten about her. And the consultants and all those different people, the Axelrods, everyone and anyone who wanted to get rid of Joe Biden and install Kamala Harris, they made money off of this transaction. They sucked up those donations from big donors and small donors, and they cashed those checks, except of course for the staffers that will remain unpaid, the vendors that will remain unpaid due to the fact that Kamala Harris managed her campaign so poorly that she ended up into debt. But everyone that matters in terms of Democratic circles, they got paid, and they got paid big. And that's because this campaign was largely a scam. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Kamala Harris bribing the media. Till next time.